4 spine-chilling, true hitchhiking tales, unexplained encounters with sinister strangers exposed. Maple Grove was one of those picture-perfect suburbs where life was a comfortable routine and danger felt like an abstract concept. But when the spine-tingling tales of a dangerous hitchhiker began to circulate, the calm was shattered. Reports of this eerie drifter lurking on the isolated back roads had parents locking their doors and children scurrying home before sundown. It created an undercurrent of tension that twisted through the neighborhoods like fog, with whispers trailing in grocery stores and gatherings, stories of lost girls and a firefighter caught up in darkness. Among the swirling unease was Sarah, a dedicated single mother who lived for the daily chaos of school runs and busy weekends with her adventurous 16-year-old daughter, Emily. But one night, as stories of the hitchhiker slithered through their community, Sarah's world flipped upside down. She felt it in the air, a bone-deep apprehension, when Emily announced she was heading out with friends to explore those very back roads, the same ones that made Sarah's heart pound with fear. "Mom, it's just a drive," Emily insisted, her voice thick with teenage bravado. But there was no shaking Sarah's worry. Those roads held whispered legends that chilled her blood. As twilight fell, she paced their small kitchen, anxiety gnawing at her. The clock ticked away precious minutes, and dread crawled up her spine. Why hadn't Emily called? What if she crossed paths with the threat that haunted their town? With every second that slipped by, panic clawed at her insides. She couldn't sit still any longer. Fueled by fear and adrenaline, Sarah blurted out an uncharacteristic decision. She was going to find Emily. Sarah's heart raced as she grabbed her keys and stepped out into the dusky evening, the neighborhood now wide open and menacing. The streets that felt familiar now wore shadows that whispered secrets of danger. Her pulse quickened as she passed houses where neighbors looked on with blank expressions that felt too still, too knowing. Each hurried exchange did little to ease her nerves. They offered pitying looks, but Sarah sensed an unsettling excitement just beneath the surface. "Did you hear about the hitchhiker?" one neighbor whispered, cupping her hands as if afraid to speak too loud. The mention twisted like a knife, sending icy fingers crawling across Sarah's skin. She needed to focus, to push back the creeping fear. But rumors howled through her thoughts, tales of a firefighter whose fall from grace turned him sinister, a ghost haunting their seemingly perfect town. The lore deepened, echoing of souls lost on the winding roads. Sarah gripped the steering wheel tighter, knuckles white as she turned onto Widow's Way, a cursed stretch where folklore entwined with truth. The unsettling murmurs of "bad things happen here" echoed in her mind as she ventured deeper, headlights slicing through the dark like a knife. And then she saw him, a figure on the roadside, his silhouette stark against the fading light. It was too familiar, too comfortable, a face she once thought she could trust. The horror slammed into her like an icy wave. The stories roared to life. He stood there smiling, eyes piercing through the dark. "Sarah!" His voice, a haunting echo of familiarity. Dread wrapped around her throat, squeezing tighter. Was this just a nightmare, or was the terror she feared all too real? As fear coursed through her veins, she knew she stood on the edge of something unspeakable. The car's engine idled ominously, caught between escape and confrontation. In the throes of darkness, what would she choose? What hidden truths awaited her in the chilling unknown? "Get in, Sarah." The voice was smooth, almost coaxing, but the once warm tone felt like ice now, clawing at her instincts. She didn't want to, well, she couldn't. It was as if time itself froze in that moment. Her eyes darted to the rear view, shadowing the road behind her. Was this the hitchhiker, or was this man something else entirely? The man, his name slipped from her memory, drowned in dread, took a step closer. She was paralyzed in disbelief. The man's features twisted in shadows, but there was familiarity in the curve of his lips. It danced between recognition and terror, giving way to a nightmare she didn't want to face. But the haunting truth glimmered behind her mind's eye, a reflection of a past buried deep. "Is Emily with you?" She managed to choke out, the question slipping through her clenched teeth. Panic surged, the engine murmured in frustration, but she didn't dare move. "Of course!" He smiled wider, and it felt wrong. His expression morphed into a mask of something sinister, a dark reminder of all the stories told around half-lit campfires. "You should really let me inside." "Get back!" Sarah shouted, her heart hammering mercilessly against her ribs. Then, without thinking, she slammed the car into reverse. The tires screeched, the darkness behind her swallowed the sound like an eager predator. But the figure lunged for the door, fingers wrapping around the handle. She could see him better now. "Sarah, look at me," he pleaded, and his eyes held a flicker of desperate familiarity. "You know me." "Do I?" The thought froze her. The memories rushed in like a tide, fragments of laughter, warm nights, and then a slow fade into peril. Before she could grasp any resolution, a haunting scream echoed through the night. It didn't belong to her. Her eyes widened as the chilling realization sunk in. It had to be Emily. The scream sliced through the fear and injected adrenaline into her veins, pounding like a war drum in her chest. She couldn't think. She couldn't breathe. "Let me go," she said finally, her voice trembling but resolute, revving the engine with fierce defiance. "Sarah, stop!" he shouted, but she couldn't. The foot pressed harder on the pedal, urgency clawed at her. She swerved around him, tires spinning, kicking gravel and dust into the air as she tore down the road. But she wasn't free yet. The thought of Emily and the surging fear of what she faced surged within her, propelling her forward. She drove through the dark, snatching glimpses of shadows flickering at the periphery. Brushes of trees felt like gnarled hands reaching for her. The night muttered sinister promises that threaded through her thoughts, a warning that screamed for her to turn back. But turning back was not an option. She needed to save her daughter. Desperately, she scoured the road ahead, praying for a sign, a roadblock, anything. A few twists and turns later, she saw headlights in the distance. A car. Relief swelled briefly in her chest, but just as quickly it morphed into dread as she caught sight of the parked vehicle. The silhouette of another figure lurked beside it, waiting with an almost palpable hunger. Was it more than one? Time warped as she approached, and her grip tightened instinctively on the wheel. Could this be another danger? Another flesh-eating ghost of Maple Grove? Just then a phone rang, shrill and jarring against the quiet. It was hers. She hadn't thought to silence it. The sight of a single name appeared. Emily. "Mom! Help!" The urgency in her daughter's voice washed over her like cold water. A cacophony of confusion erupted within her. Danger loomed everywhere. Would she answer and risk exposing both of them, or was it indeed her chance to push through the web of terror and find Emily? As she fought against the tightening knots of dread, the world closed in around her. What awaited on the other side of that call? What shadowy secrets lingered in the dark? With no idea of what lay ahead, she took a deep breath and pressed the answer button. But in those fleeting moments, she didn't know if she was about to uncover a hidden truth or plunge deeper into an abyss. "Mom!" Emily's voice crackled through the phone, frantic, every syllable twisted like a dagger lodged in Sarah's chest. "Where are you? You need to hurry!" Her heart accepted the rush of fear that came with those words, but her mind screamed for details. "Emily, where are you?" Her voice wavered, a threadbare fabric almost fraying under pressure. She felt the weight of every passing heartbeat hanging in the moments that followed. I'm at the old cabin, remember?" There was a pause. "Mom, he's coming back. Please, please hurry." The old cabin. Sarah shivered. It wasn't just an old family retreat. It was a haunted relic of shattered memories. On sleepless nights, Emily would tell ghost stories about that place. Shadows creeping through the walls, whispers that floated with the wind. The idea of going back there made bile rise in her throat, but the threat in her daughter's voice was enough to compel her forward. "Stay where you are! Hang up and lock the door!" She barely managed to keep her voice steady. The car gripped the pavement tightly, her knuckles turning white as she navigated the twisted road. Fear churned in her gut like a tempest. "Mom!" Emily shrieked, wrenching Sarah's attention to the shadows. The headlights loomed closer, and the figure beside the car became clearer. A man, tall and gaunt, unmistakably hollow even from a distance. He leaned against the vehicle with a predator's vigilance, dark eyes boring into her. Fear slammed into her like a fist, but she had no time for hesitation. She swerved onto a gravel path, a shortcut she had long avoided. Rattling over stones, she felt suspended between terror and determination. "Stay on the line!" she shouted just before she cut the call, but static filled the silence on the other end. The phone buzzed, then went dead. She dropped the device into her lap, panic tightening her chest. Unable to breathe properly, she felt the cold fingers of despair creeping closer. What kind of monster was waiting for her at the cabin? Sarah pressed her foot down on the gas, and the engine roared to life, propelling her further into the bleak expanse of night. Dim trees blurred past, silhouettes of darkness that wrapped around her as the tension thickened. They were waiting. She nearly missed the old cabin as brambles and overgrown grass cloaked its appearance. The front door creaked ominously in the wind when she swung it open. Empty. The musty air swallowed her whole, producing no trace of her daughter. "Emily!" she called, the name a fevered prayer on her lips. No answer came, only echoes that taunted her. Shadows writhed in the corners, teasing her resolve and dancing on the edges of her sanity. The flashlight flickered as she made her way through the living room, each step resurfacing memories, laughter, warmth, and then the clap of foreboding silence that followed. A flicker drew her gaze to the back window. Outside, she saw the figure again, lingering at the tree line. It was him, the man from before. Disbelief flooded her as his lips curled into that familiar, sinister smile. "I told you to let me inside," he said, the wind carrying his voice like poison. It slithered into her ears, igniting every dark memory she had tried to forget. "Why are you here?" "What do you want?" she shouted, clenched fists trembling at her sides. Footsteps echoed from somewhere deep within the cabin, quiet but insistent. Sarah's breath hitched as she realized whatever was out there wanted in. The primal instinct to flee clutched at her. Was this truly the man she once knew, or was he the harbinger of something far worse? "Emily!" The cry erupted from her throat as she rushed to the back rooms, the dread hooked deeper, burrowing into her mind. Just as she approached the door to the basement, it swung ajar with an eerie creak. From the darkness below, a figure emerged. Not just any figure. It was Emily, but her expression was twisted, haunted. "Mom," she whispered, voice cracked. "He's coming." And the last remnants of security slipped away as a chilling laugh echoed from the dark, wrapping around Sarah like a creeping fog. What lay behind that laughter? Was escape still possible, or would the darkness consume them both? The basement door hung ajar, revealing a pitch-black void that seemed to breathe in the dim light of the cabin. Sarah's heart hammered in her chest as Emily's fragile form emerged from the darkness. The girl's eyes, once bright and filled with warmth, now glistened with a glassy sheen, reflecting a silent terror that rippled through Sarah like icy claws. "Mom, we have to go. Now," Emily murmured, taking a hesitant step forward. Her voice trembled, barely above a whisper, but the urgency was clear. There was something behind her, a darkness that pulsed with sinister intent, as if it were waiting for just the right moment to strike. "Emily, what happened? Where's—" A sudden thud echoed from the rear of the cabin, jarring Sarah back to the present. She spun, heart in her throat, her instincts screaming at her to run. "Emily!" she shouted, but her daughter was moving away, drawn back to the basement stairs. "I can't let him in." The words slipped from Emily's lips, dread thickening the air around them. "We won't be safe if he gets inside." Before Sarah could respond, that laughter curled through the cabin once more, low and mocking, sending chills racing down her spine. The smooth, sick voice echoed off the wooden beams, saturating the air with a palpable dread. "This is where you belong, Sarah," it crooned from the shadows. "This is where it all ends." Panic surged. Sarah gripped Emily's wrist, pulling her back. "We need to get out," she shouted, urgency wrapping around her words. The very walls felt alive, rotting secrets and memories eager to ensnare them. Fighting against the instinct to flee down the basement stairs, where more darkness awaited, Sarah ushered Emily toward the front door. But it was too late. The man, who always lingered just beyond reach, now stood silhouetted against the cabin's threshold, a harbinger of chaos. "Going somewhere?" he asked, stepping forward. His bony fingers curled around the doorknob like a vice. Each step he took heralded an impending doom, the air thickening as dread enveloped the room. "Mom, we can't let him in," Emily cried, backing away until her body pressed solidly against Sarah's. They were trapped between the lurking shadow of the man and the ever-consuming darkness of the basement. "Stop!" the figure said, voice dripping with a menacing calm. "There's no escape. Why deny what's already yours?" Sarah's throat tightened. Memories swirled like smoke. The cabin, once a place of family, had turned into a theater for nightmares, commanding every ounce of her will. She faced the man, fury igniting. "You can't take her. You have no power here." The man chuckled, a sound eerily close to a lullaby, and stepped closer, closing the gap. "But you see, love, she's already mine. She's always been mine." In that moment, as the shadows twisted and warped, Sarah felt the ground beneath her begin to give way, while Emily's eyes darted from her mother to the figure. "Help me, Mom." Her voice had transformed into a distressed plea, filled with unfiltered terror. With seconds fading, Sarah's mind grasped at the only option left, a desperate throw of the dice. She spun around, darting for the kitchen, adrenaline fueling her every move. There was a window, a thin glimmer of hope. "We can break out!" she shouted, pulling Emily along. Fingers grasped Emily's wrist tightly as they sprinted, but just as they reached the window, a loud crash reverberated through the cabin. The figure had entered, and the air shifted, thickening with dread. Goosebumps raced up Sarah's arms, as if the walls themselves were whispering secrets conspiring against them. Their fate hung in the balance, breathlessly teetering on the edge of darkness. Would the darkness claim them both? Could they escape? "I won't let him have you," Sarah vowed, ready to shatter the last remnants of their nightmares. But just as she glanced back, ready to face whatever monstrosities awaited, a looming shadow eclipsed the doorway. They were never truly alone. The sound of crunching leaves echoed outside, heralding the approach of something new, something worse. What awaited them outside? Would it be salvation, or another nightmarish trap? The window was a mere whisper of freedom, but as Sarah gripped the frame, splinters bit into her fingers. She strained to lift it, but the weight of the air, thick with fear, felt like lead. Behind them, the figure stepped into the dim light of the kitchen, its shadow stretching unnaturally long, pulsating like a beating heart. "Do you really think you can escape?" he hissed, his voice slithering through the room. Each word punctured the fragile hope they clung to. The man's presence was a heavy fog, choking any chance of clarity. "Mom!" Emily whimpered, her small body trembling against the cold linoleum floor. "Hold on, sweetheart. Just a moment longer." Sarah's eyes darted around, desperate for anything that could be used as a weapon. Desks, knives, even old bottles, nothing guaranteed safety. Suddenly a loud bang echoed from the basement door, rattling the cabin's very foundation. The noise sliced through Sarah's resolve. The shadows behind it were restless, like a beast waiting to be unleashed. "Don't let him out!" Emily cried, her voice rising in panic. "We can't let what's down there see the light." But before Sarah could respond, the figure lunged at her, fingers outstretched like claws. She ducked, feeling the whoosh of air as his hand barely grazed her hair. With a quick motion, she grabbed a glass bottle from the counter and swung it hard against the wall, shattering it into deadly shards. "Stay close!" she shouted at Emily as they darted toward the back door. The figure loomed tall behind them, laughing again, sick and cruel. The sound chilled Sarah, as if the room itself were mocking them. Outside, the dark woods stood ominously still, tree branches like twisted fingers reaching for the sky. But there were no paths. Everything was swallowed by shadow. They had to choose: face the darkness of the woods or return to the unknown horrors within. "Mom, please!" Emily begged, her eyes wide with terror. "What if it follows us? What if we can't find our way back?" "Then we make our own way," Sarah yelled, determination igniting inside her. She flung the door open with a creak, and darkness rushed in, wrapping around them like a blanket. They stumbled onto the porch. Cold air clawed at their skin, and for a moment they hesitated, taking in the vast darkness before them. "Just a little bit further," Sarah reassured herself as much as Emily. "We need to keep moving." But just as she took a step down, a strange rustling came from the bushes nearby. It was low at first, almost peaceful, but quickly crescendoed into something wild, furious. Waves of dread crashed over her. "Emily, run!" But the moment they set off into the night, the laughter turned to screams. This time, it wasn't just the figure inside the cabin. It felt as if something else was joining the chaos. They sprinted through the trees, limbs clawing at their clothes, roots snaring their feet, each step deeper into the woods, an invitation to unseen horrors. And as they ran, Sarah could feel the presence behind them, relentless, hungry for what they had. And with a chilling certainty, it wasn't just darkness that pursued them. "Mom!" Emily cried, slipping in the mud. "Get up! We can't stop!" Sarah yanked her up, but the laughter receded, only to be replaced by a whisper echoing through the trees. "Why don't you stay? We can play forever." Heart thundering, Sarah had to swallow her fear. The only choice left was to plunge deeper into the blackness. But what lay in those depths? Would whatever lurked there grant them temporary refuge, or would it seal their fate forever? As they plunged into the chilling embrace of the forest, shadows twisted and turned in the night. The true terror had just begun. Branches whipped past Sarah and Emily like skeletal hands, grasping at her clothes, tugging them back, as if the woods were eager to reclaim what dared to intrude. Every step resonated with a crunch, muffled only by the urgent pounding of their hearts. The strange whispering faded for a moment, replaced by the violence of their breath, the thumping rhythm of feet against the earth. "Where do we go?" Emily gasped, her voice cracking in the cold night air. "Just keep running," Sarah urged, adrenaline propelling her forward as she glanced back. The cabin's silhouette loomed ominously behind them, its shadow swallowed by the trees. Her instinct screamed that something watched from deeper within the dark, something as sinister as the figure that had pursued them. Suddenly, from the depths of the woods, a guttural roar erupted, shaking the leaves and sending a shiver through Sarah's bones. It echoed like a warning, sharp and menacing. The unseen entity was pursuing them, no longer hidden by the darkness. Panic surged as they sprinted, their path twisting and turning like a coiling snake. "Mom, I can't keep up," Emily panted, her small legs weary. Just as despair threatened to consume Sarah, she spotted a gnarled tree ahead, its trunk split like a mouth, hollowed out, inviting. "There! Quick, into the tree!" she yelled. They ducked inside, hearts racing in the cramped, dark space. The air around them thickened, hanging like fog. Outside, the sounds of their pursuers drew closer, heavy footsteps, leaves crumbling beneath the weight of something huge. Emily's breath was shaky against Sarah's side, fear compressing the silence. They pressed against the damp bark, listening. As the heavy footfalls circled their hiding place, a low voice drifted through the cracks of the tree. "You can't hide forever. My friends will find you." A chill skated down Sarah's spine. Friends? What kind of friends lurked in these shadows? Anxiety tangled her thoughts, twisting tight. She clamped a hand over Emily's mouth. It took everything in her to suppress the urge to scream. They were cornered now. It was only a matter of time. With trembling hands, she clutched Emily closer, her mind racing for an escape. The idea of being trapped frightened her more than anything else. As they held their breath, the heavy presence loomed nearer, humming a cruel lullaby that stirred the air around them. Shadows danced like bad dreams, flickering just outside their refuge. "Let's play a game," whispered the voice, smooth like oil. "I'll give you a head start, and then I'll hunt you down." With a surge of anger, Sarah peeked through the crack in the tree bark. The figures gathered around the clearing. The man from the cabin stood tall, flanked by grotesque shapes, features obscured but teeming with menace. They swayed, a grotesque dance under the moonlit sky, drawn by the promise of fear. "Ready or not?" the figure called, grinning wide, teeth glinting like knives in the dark. A decision loomed over Sarah like a heavy cloud. Stay put and risk being found, or burst out into the night with only fear to guide them. But the night wouldn't give them answers. Emily whispered, "What do we do?" "On 3 we run," Sarah said, heart slipping into her throat. Would anything out there offer safety, or would the firm grip of the dark swallow them whole? 1, 2... Just as she reached the precipice of 3, the ground trembled beneath them. A guttural growl rumbled from deeper within the woods as the shadows collided, merging into something larger, something much more vicious than before. "Run!" Sarah shouted as the world erupted in chaos around them. But would they find refuge, or would the darkness claim them as its own? Clutching hands, they burst from their hiding spot, hearts pounding as terror propelled them forward into the unknown. As they fled, a terrible realization sank in. There was no guarantee of escape, only a night draped in horrors yet to come. Branches cracked underfoot, echoing like a countdown in Sarah's ears. Fear fueled her sprint, adrenaline making every stride feel alive. Emily stumbled beside her, but there was no time to help. The night hung thick with dread, the shadows wrapping around them like a vice. "Keep going, Em," Sarah urged, her voice strained but fierce. The chorus of growls danced on the wind, a cacophony that echoed like a monstrous heartbeat. As the darkness swallowed them deeper into the woods, she cast furtive glances over her shoulder. The figures were close, melded together with grotesque ease, gliding through the brush as if gravity no longer applied to them. Their laughter twisted the air, a sickening melody that sent a shiver down Sarah's spine. Suddenly a terrible realization hit her. They had to find somewhere safe, soon, or they'd be reduced to mere memories. Looking left and right, she spotted a dilapidated shed poking through the trees, half hidden by the shadows. "There! The shed!" she shouted. Emily's breath was shallow, her legs wobbling as they raced towards it. They reached the rotting door and flung it open, stumbling inside. The scent of mildew and decay choked them, mixing with the scent of damp earth. "Are they coming?" Emily whispered, her wide eyes reflecting fear and confusion. Sarah pressed herself against the door, heart racing as it creaked ominously. "I don't know. Just stay quiet." The muffled sounds of pursuit echoed outside, growing louder. There was that voice again, edged with sickening glee. "Are you hiding, little girls? You can't escape us. We're just having a bit of fun." As Sarah's eyes adjusted to the dimness, she scanned the cramped space, old tools jutting out at odd angles and cobwebs clinging to the corners. A flickering light punctuated the shadows, creating grotesque shapes that danced along the walls. She felt a cold shiver race down her spine, a hand sliding up from her stomach to clutch her throat. "Look!" Emily pointed at a corner where the light pooled. There lay a cell phone, cracked but still operational. Sarah lunged for it, hope surging with her heartbeat. "Emily, we can call for help," she said, but when she pressed the power button, the screen flickered on, revealing a chilling last screen, an image of the cabin surrounded by those familiar silhouettes, grinning evilly into the camera. "Get back!" Sarah screamed, throwing the phone away like it burned her hands. It shattered on the floor, shards glimmering dangerously like little stars of doom. "Why? What did it show?" Emily trembled, eyes darting towards the door. "Nothing! It doesn't matter!" Sarah's voice cracked. The shadows lurked hungrily. Sudden crashing from outside made them both jump. Something huge slammed against the shed, sending splinters flying. "We have to go! Now!" They pushed past the fear and rushed through the back door, barely escaping as the front crumbled under the weight of that monstrous presence. The moonlight illuminated the path ahead, revealing a trail winding hopelessly into the woods. "Where do we run to?" Emily's voice trembled. "Anywhere but here," Sarah shouted, heart thudding. But the woods thickened, branches becoming arms, reaching out to snatch them away. The laughter returned, louder, more sinister, wrapping around them like a noose. "There's no escape in the game, girls. Just give in, and it'll be over soon." As they sprinted deeper into the labyrinth of trees, just ahead, shadows began to converge. They weren't alone anymore. Shadows flickered, whispering with broken voices, erratic and disjointed. "Sarah, are those?" But the words died in Emily's throat, a scream of terror torn from her as a figure lunged forward from the darkness. "Run!" Sarah screamed, pulling Emily to her feet. But what if the night wasn't done playing? What if the true horror was only just beginning? They stumbled away from the shed, breathless and wide-eyed. The darkness felt alive, pulsing with danger. The trees towered overhead, their branches scratching at the sky like skeletal fingers. Every sound, a crack, a rustle, fueled their panic further. "Did you see what that figure looked like?" Emily panted, glancing back over her shoulder as they ran. "I don't want to think about it," Sarah shot back, fear twisting in her stomach like a knife. Ahead, the moon flickered in and out of sight as clouds rolled through the sky. The ominous laughter echoed again, wrapping around them, seeping into their bones. "Don't you want to stay and play?" it called, voice dripping with malice. "Faster!" Sarah urged, dragging Emily forward. They rounded a thick tree, and Sarah barely suppressed a scream as another shadow darted across their path. It was just a flash, but it was enough to see a glimmer of malice in those eyes. "Sarah," Emily gasped, coming to a halt. "What if we can't—" "Shut up! Just keep moving!" Sarah snapped, the tension in her voice matching the tightness in her chest. They burst into a small clearing, moonlight flooding the space and causing them to momentarily halt. Sarah pulled Emily close, panting heavily, scanning for anything that might resemble safety. The shadows danced around the edges, hungry shapes that flickered just out of reach. "This doesn't feel right," Emily whispered, her voice quavering. "Maybe we should have stayed in the shed." "No, Em, we can't go back." Suddenly everything went quiet. The laughter, the growls, silenced like a storm had passed. It was like the world was holding its breath. Sarah felt the air thicken, weighty and oppressive, and her skin prickled with unease. "Sarah," Emily muttered, stepping closer. "What's happening?" From the darkness, a figure emerged. Tall and twisted, it stepped into the light, undeniable and awful. It raised a hand, long fingers clawed and crooked. Sarah could see its face now. Mottled skin stretched tight over a skull-like structure, sunken eyes glowing with a sickly yellow hue. "Playing hide-and-seek," it whispered, its voice a hiss, slipping into their ears. "You have to hide better next time." "Run!" Sarah screamed, pulling Emily's arm as they darted towards the opposite side of the clearing. As they dashed forward, Sarah tried to shake off the vision of that haunting figure, but it lingered in her mind, each step becoming harder, each breath more labored. They ran, not knowing where they were headed, simply desperate to put distance between themselves and that monstrosity. Twisting through the trees, they finally found a narrow path, overgrown and forgotten. "This way!" Emily shouted, leading the charge. They plunged down the trail, which tangled deeper into the woods. A sudden snap echoed behind them. Sarah's heart lurched as she felt hot breath on her back, a foul stench invading her nostrils. "Emily, go faster!" she yelled, urging her forward. Emily's foot caught on a root and she stumbled, coming crashing down on the forest floor. "Get up! We can't stop!" Sarah turned, panic rising, but Emily lay there, wide eyes searching in the dark. "I can't," she gasped, voice faint. "No! We're so close to—" Before she could finish her thought, the shadows closing in began to merge, forming shapes that resembled both the forest and nightmare. They twisted, contorted, and let out a low growl, a sound reverberating like the rattle of bones. Ignoring the dread pooling in her stomach, Sarah knelt beside Emily. "You have to get up." "Sarah, I can't. I'm too—" The shadows lunged forward. Sarah's blood turned to ice. "Em, please!" It was too late for please. The darkness erupted, a rush of cold and screams filling the air. As Sarah felt the shadows envelop her, crushing her breath, her last thought flickered like a dying flame. What if this was all a game to them? And then there was nothing but darkness. But what if darkness was just the beginning? What if they were not just victims, but players in a new horror? Sarah gasped, her eyes snapping open to the blinding light of moonbeams spilling through the trees. For a moment, she thought she was back in the clearing, free from the oppressive darkness that had closed in on her. But no, she lay on damp ground, tangled in roots and leaves, the chill of night clinging to her skin. Panic gripped her heart. "Emily!" she called, voice hoarse, fear clawing at her throat. She pushed herself up, scanning the area frantically, but the clearing was gone. In its place was a dense thicket, shadows clutching tightly to the trunks of twisted trees. "Emily!" Silence. Just the rustling of leaves and the distant hoot of an owl. She swallowed hard. Had they been separated? Had that thing taken Emily? Desperation lanced through her. She forced her legs to move, catching sight of faint prints in the soft soil. No, not footprints, just shadows cast by branches swaying in the breeze. With each step, shadows here felt alive, reaching for her. The laughter echoed again, rasping through the trees, mocking and sinister. "You can't run forever." Where was she? The forest seemed to shift, each tree morphing into something familiar yet foreign, and the path she followed twisted, warping perception. Light and dark battled within her mind, creating illusions that teased at her sanity. "Keep it together, Sarah," she murmured to herself. She needed to find Emily. They had to get back. Just then, she noticed a flicker of light between the trees, so faint it was almost a mirage. Hope surged within her. She rushed toward it, pushing through the underbrush, but as she moved closer, the light dimmed, pulsing like a heartbeat. It danced just out of her reach, taunting her as she stumbled forward. "Stop!" she gritted out, frustration boiling over. "I'm not afraid of you." Her voice cracked, even as doubt gnawed at her resolve. She wanted to curl up, give in, but Emily needed her. A figure swirled at the edge of her vision, and she spun around. Heart racing, she faced the place she'd just come through. But nothing was there. Only dark shadows crouching as if they waited for her to falter. Without thinking, she turned and dashed toward the light, faster now, her breath quickening as adrenaline surged. It beckoned, a promise of safety. It had to lead her to Emily. Stick close to the light. What had her mom always said? But the shadows whispered, no longer just the rustle of branches. They spoke in hisses and growls, pulling at her mind. "You can't escape. You're already part of the game." She stumbled through a thicket, bursting into a small clearing, the light now bright and overwhelming, and there in the center stood Emily, but something was wrong. Emily spun slowly, her face blank, like a doll without a soul, eyes glazed over. "They're here, Sarah," she murmured, voice flat, as if rehearsing lines from a script. "You have to play." "Emily, snap out of it!" Panic surged through Sarah's veins. She sprinted toward her friend, reaching out, but just as she did, the shadows surged at the edge of the clearing, eyes blinking in the darkness. "Play with us," they hissed, the silhouette of that twisted figure leaning into the light, grinning with an impossible smile. "Emily, run!" But it was too late. Like a marionette, Emily stepped forward, hand raised as if to greet the darkness. The realization hit Sarah hard. The light, that fateful allure, was drawing Emily in. In that moment of clarity, an icy dread crept over Sarah. How far had they fallen into the depths of this horror? She might lose her friend forever. And as the shadows began to advance, something deep within her stirred, a fierce determination to fight. "You will not take her," she screamed. But in this game, stakes were high, and all bets were off. She needed a way out, and time was running out fast. Together they had to reclaim the light and confront the dark's horrible games. But as Sarah took a step forward, the shadows leapt, hungry for her resolve. Would they win, or were they already lost? As the darkness neared, Sarah could only hope there was a way to turn the tide before it was too late. The world spun like a whirlwind around Sarah, each heartbeat drumming a desperate rhythm against the looming dread. She fought to hold herself together, tethered to a fierce resolve. She would not lose Emily to the encroaching darkness. She called again, voice cracking yet fierce, pulling at the frayed edges of Emily's consciousness. The shadows coiled and twisted, burrowing into the light, eager to extinguish every glimmer of hope. "Play with us," they hissed, wrapped in an ominous cadence, as Emily's gaze glazed over like spun sugar, the innocent spark now dulled. "Emily, listen to me," Sarah shouted, determination ripping through her fear as she pushed through the static of terror engulfing them both. "You're stronger than this. Remember all those times we fought through tough things together. We can beat this." For a split second she saw flickers of light sparkle in Emily's eyes, a memory sparking against the haze of enchantment. Just a flicker. And then it dimmed again. "Join the game, Em." The twisted figure laughed, drawing nearer, its phantom fingers clawing at the edges of the light. But Sarah wasn't finished yet. She surged forward, resolute, every ounce of her being focused on her daughter. "No!" she shouted, fear morphing into anger as she propelled her body forward, racing towards the darkness with purpose. Light spilled from her heart into the abyss, wrapping around Emily, cocooning her in warmth. "You have to fight it. Think of all the things we want to do, the places we want to see. This isn't our end." A breath caught in her throat as Emily hesitated. The shadows recoiled slightly, momentarily stunned by Sarah's unwavering will. Emily's expression tightened, caught in a battle against the whispers. "Mom, The plea tore free as Emily blinked, uncertainty flickering in the depths of her warm brown eyes, clamoring against the looming void. "Just hold on," Sarah urged, the ground trembling beneath them as if the very forest reacted to her plea. The patches of light surrounding Emily swelled again, pulsing to the rhythm of Sarah's growing hope. In that final push, Sarah dove forward, grabbing Emily's hands firmly. A surge of love ignited, weaving through them both like a sanctuary against the encroaching chill. With a shuddering breath, Sarah locked eyes with Emily, squeezing tight. "We're going to break free, together." And just like that, unleashing a roar of reclamation, the bond broke the barrier. Clarity rushed in as Emily fought against the shadows grasping at her, ripping her away from their grip with sheer will. "No, you won't take her!" Emily shouted, eyes burning bright, and with a fierce tug she stepped back toward Sarah, pulling away from the darkness that wanted to consume them both. "Playtime is over!" She lunged back, dragging the light back into the space surrounding them. The shadows shrieked, the figures wilting in the face of their resistance. Together they surged against the dark, laughter transforming into screams of fury as the light pushed forward, enveloping the twisted figure and scattering it into wisps. Murderous shadows slithered away as if the dawn had risen, retreating from the stinging warmth of love and courage. "Run!" Sarah urged again, bursting forward with Emily at her side, their feet pounding wildly against the earth as they dashed toward the half-glimpsed clearing they saw through the chaos. "Mom, this way!" Emily pointed ahead to a path opening, revealing not just a way out, but a flickering groove of reassurance. Silence descended, creating a wide-open space between them and the shadows. The oppressive weight of fear began to lift, clarity pouring in like a golden hue, washing over lost terrain. "Keep moving, we're almost there," Sarah said, hope fueling their steps. "Just a little bit more, we can do this." And with each stride the periphery widened, revealing spaces once hidden, long shadows losing their edge. With the forest trembling behind them, they broke through, bursting into a patch where moonlight flooded over the trees and grass swayed gently as if welcoming them back. "We did it!" Emily gasped, breathless wonder coloring her voice. The shadows had fallen away, and the haunting laughter faded into the distance, replaced by the soft whisper of night air. "Together we always win," Sarah breathed, wrapping her arms around her daughter, emotions swelling in her chest until her heart ached with relief. As they stood under the moonlit sky, lights twinkling like stars above, the figures of darkness melted away into fading wisps of memory, lessons learned amidst the horrors they faced. But beyond them, the woods still whispered, holding secrets, lingering hints of the nights haunted by shadows. "Mom, what if it wasn't just a game for them?" Emily asked quietly, the weight of experience grounding each word, truth twisting through light. "We'll be ready next time," Sarah promised, voice steady, squeezing her daughter's shoulders. "We faced the worst, and we survived. We'll always find our way back to safety." As they began the path homeward together, hand in hand, there was no fear, but respect for what the darkness had taught them, resilience, unity, and the unwavering power of love. They would always be prepared to face the shadows again if necessary, knowing they would emerge stronger, together. And for Sarah, that would be enough. Don't forget to subscribe immediately to our channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this thrilling conclusion. And for the love of all that's scary and fascinating, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second. Join the community today.